Music, love life. You are welcome to Freshly Pressed right here on Smooth Noise 8.1. It's a part of Smooth Breakfast, and every weekday, 7:30 till 8 o'clock, we get to analyze some of the top news stories that we obtain and get from the national dailies. So you're welcome to join us and be a part of the conversation. WhatsApp line is 0809 444 0981. Again, 0809 444 0981. Well, the YouTube that you can go to be a part of the conversation as well. And that means that you can stream, you can drop your comments using the live chat option. It means that you can also go back to watch it later on. Is at Smooth 91 FM Lagos. At Smooth 91 FM Lagos. My name is Oluwaseun, and it's a Thursday, so it means I do have the company of Gbubemi Atimomo. Good morning.
Good morning, Oluwaseun. Good morning, Lagos. Good morning, Mr. C.
Mr. C joining me virtually as well. Good morning, Mr. C.
Good morning, Oluwaseun. Good morning, Gbubemi. Good morning, Lagos.
All right, thank you. We dive right into it, and we know this one is the trendy topic. Let's go back to River State. I'm taking this one from The Guardian. Fagbemi, that is the Attorney General of the Federation as well, and he's saying that he's backing the president on his decision to declare state of emergency in River State, and also alleging that the governor, Fubara, teleguided militants to blow pipeline. Mr. C.
Okay, thank you, Oluwaseun. So, as you rightly said, this is a topic on the front burner for a lot of Nigerians, and it's a topic that promises many unfolding episodes as the days go by and as the weeks go by. Now, the Attorney General of the Federation was speaking yesterday, and he was trying to rationalize the decision of the president to declare a state of emergency. Now, he did say both things. He did say that no responsible government will sack and watch the ugly situation in the state get out of hand. And then he literally said that Governor Fubara telegraphed militants, and even if he not, he didn't do anything about it. Now, there's points. The Attorney General of the Federation is a brilliant lawyer. He's a senior lawyer, very brilliant, and he's well respected within the legal circle. And it was a very good attempt by him to defend what has been done. However, there are a few questions that crop up in my mind. Question number one. A private security firm was giving a multi-billion naira contract to protect our pipelines. This private security firm is linked to a prominent Niger Delta ex-militant warlord or leader. Now, on the back of that contract, he has a job to do. The Nigerian Navy is also tasked with carrying our waterways internally and externally. You then have the JTF or the JTF that's operating in the Niger Delta area. Now, when the pipelines were blown up, AGF did say that Fubara did not do anything about it. He didn't invent it, and he didn't take any step afterwards. So my question is this: how come nobody is asking this private security firm that is clearly collecting huge sums of money as the Navy, as the JTF, to explain what happened and what investigations are being carried out? Yeah, we love to say that the governor of the state is the chief security officer. In truth and in reality, each of various security agencies have bosses report to, and they're all domiciled in Abuja. So the head of JTF will probably report into the CS or the head of the armed forces service to which he belongs. Now, furthermore, he did say that, look, he wanted to prevent total breakdown of law and order. Prior to Tuesday, there was no breakdown of law and order in River State. What we had were two opposing and divergent camps being belligerent in their positions. Now, the Supreme Court had ordered that Governor Fubara should comply, and he had started the process of compliance with the said order. the House of Assembly suddenly adjourned indefinitely, and from that indefinite adjournment then issued the notice of gross conduct and the intention to proceed with the impeachment of the governor. So following the backlash, the general backlash that has accompanied the announcement on Tuesday, I note that today is the last day for both the Senate and the House of Representatives to ratify Mr. President's decision. And how do they ratify the decision? They have to both pass by two-thirds majority the decision made by Mr. President to declare a state of emergency. Now, it is important to note the two-thirds majority is of all members, not the members present. And we have on good authority, or we understand on good authority, a good number of the legislators are currently observing the Lesser Hajj in Saudi Arabia. So what happens if the House of Representatives and the Senate are unable to ratify the state of emergency? What will then mean is that the proclamation falls short, and we should expect a return of not only the House of Assembly, but also the governor and deputy governor. But Thursday started, we have a day ahead of us, and we'll see what happens. But I think, with all honesty and sincerity, the president's position is one-sided, because to the common man in the street, to the reasonable man in the street, it's clear that the House of Assembly members are dancing to the tune of a Pied Piper. Whether or not we're ready to acknowledge and confront this reality remains to be seen. But all in all, there is no precedent for suspending democratically elected leaders. And it begs the question, the Supreme Court froze Rivers State allocation from the federal treasury. All of a sudden, they're ready to give it to an unelected, appointed sole administrator. There are many questions that need to be answered, but for now, no answers, and we'll see what happens in the coming weeks.
Fingers crossed. Do you have anything to add to that, Gbubemi?
Yes, just largely to say that I agree with Mr. C. As things have unfolded, there have been arguments about the legality or illegality of the proclamation of the state of emergency. Some have said, oh, like Mr. C had said, that the National Assembly has to ratify it, which is what the Constitution says. Some have said that he can do that retroactively. My constant argument is the law is clear in the Constitution that that's supposed to happen before the state of emergency is declared, but that has not happened. And like Mr. C has said, well, we wait to see if they can achieve that two-thirds majority vote of the National Assembly members.
Thank you. You can join the conversation by sending your messages to 0809 444 0981. Again, 0809 444 0981. That's the WhatsApp line. And you can join us on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Abimbola from Anthony Village says, good morning, crew. I think the president pronounced a state of emergency in Rivers to safeguard the oil infrastructure, which Nigeria cannot afford to lose at this time. We need all the money from that area. Suspension of the state actors is to be able to humble them so they can see the problems from different perspectives. They're all feeling like gods in their own rights, especially had Fubara had been behaving like a gangster governor. Wike talks too much. Mr. Ajayi Olonilua from Magudu GRA Sherry says, good morning. The timely intervention of the president in declaring a state of emergency in Rivers State actually prevented a total breakdown of law and order that would have resulted in the impeachment of Governor Fubara. I think the National Assembly will approve the declaration. Daniel from Festac says, hello, Smooth. The glaring bias of the Tinubu government against Fubara is bad. They have set a precedent that will haunt Nigeria. I pray we don't return to the militant Niger Delta era we experienced since years ago, as it seems that the president wants River State as APC by all means and doesn't care about the consequences. It's sad. All right, we continue with the stories, and this time we are going to the one coming from the Vanguard, and this is a follow-up on on an article or a publication that was done 2 days ago, where it was said that President Tinubu is, as a matter of urgency, taking steps to ensure the country's territorial waters, particularly the over 2,560 oil wells in Akwa Ibom, being safe. And this is because it said that Cameroon seems to be taking over. In the words of the headlines, Mangrove Island, Cameroon's takeover threatens Nigerian sovereignty, warns Senator Bassi. Ruben.
So allegedly, let me use that word, the mangrove area within that side of the country, has allegedly been taken over by gendarmes from Cameroon, who have also been threatening the Nigerian residents there. That area has about 2,560 oil wells, in addition to fresh waters that have been identified as good for fishing. And according to the senators, that land area is Nigeria's land area. If you remember, around 2001, 2002, there was the dispute of the Bakassi Peninsula with the Cameroonians, and that case went to the International Court of Justice, and it was agreed that the Bakassi Peninsula should be ceded to Cameroon, which is what has happened. Now, what the senators are saying is that the Cameroonians are now attempting a land grab in that sense, to be able to annex these additional areas to their own land area, and they're insistent on the fact that this is Nigeria's land. So what they've done is the Senate has put together a committee together with the to conduct a research, and identify circumstances around that, and to actually establish if the taking over of the land has actually happened, by the Cameroonian gendarmes, and also to speak with the National Boundary Commission to further reestablish that land belongs to Nigeria. This is very, very important, considering, one, the oil wells that are there. Oil is one of our major, if not our major, income earner in the country. It's very important that we should protect that asset. Two, also, it's potentially undermines Nigerian sovereignty. Allowing foreigners to step into our lands can potentially form a security threat to us as well. That also undermines the economic activities of the people resident in that area as well. So it's very, very important that the nation rises to be able to protect not just the resources, but also the people in that area. The committee is made up of 9 people. As I've said, they'd also be working with the Ministry of Justice as well, Federal Ministry of Justice and National Boundary Commission, to be able to ascertain these things. Now, my question would be, my understanding is, quote and unquote, this is just to be able to gather information to reestablish the fact that the land is ours, because they have said that this portion of the country was not part of the land that was ceded together with Bakassi Peninsula. So once this investigation has been concluded, what will now be the next steps? There needs to be, at least in the first instance, some form of diplomatic relations with Cameroon. So I believe that they should also be writing to the government of Cameroon to be able to inform them of this, just in case these activities are being taken over by some independent Cameroonians and not officially by the Cameroonian government, so that we don't see ourselves having a diplomatic row necessarily. And if, God forbid, it's found out that this is an official act, then we might be heading back to the International Court of Justice to be able to establish our rights on this land.
Thank you. Now, moving to the Daily Post, there is indication of a fresh premium motor spirit price hike as Dangote Refinery announced a temporary suspension of the sales of petroleum products in Naira. Mr. C.
Sure, I could hear you.
Can you hear me now?
It's a bit faint.
Okay, let's try to fix that sound a little. Okay, just a moment. How about now?
Brilliant. Fantastic.
All right, so back to the post. This is coming from Daily Post, and there is indication of a fresh premium motor spirits price hike as Dangote Refinery announced a temporary suspension of the sales of petroleum product in Naira. They did this on their X page yesterday.
Okay, thank you, Sean. So if we recall, sometime last year, there was an agreement finally reached wherein the NNPCL would supply crude locally to the Dangote refinery. And in consideration of the receipt of that crude received locally, the Dangote refinery then sell a specified number of liters locally in naira. Now that was 6 month agreement, and that agreement ends at the end of March this month. Now, what has happened is, in the interim, the Dangote refinery has had to port crude oil using the exchange. So they're barely telling Nigerians that the local crude received has been exhausted and we sold the petrol that was refined of the local crude. So for now, we're no longer selling to the local market. We're going to concentrate our efforts on the foreign markets. Now, the question is, what does this portend for the average Nigerian consumer?
Yeah.
This is still part of some strange negotiation tactic between the NNPCL and the Dangote Refinery Limited. Now, it's important that they come to an agreement. It would appear that negotiations so far haven't been exactly successful. And the Dangote Refinery Limited is now trying to apply some pressure through media. Because if in the court of public opinion, they make it known that we can't sell to you because we're not getting crude locally, then the pressure will then be on the NNPCL and by extension the government to explain to Nigerians why they are unable to supply locally to the Dangote refinery for local consumption. So in essence, we should expect to see some sort of resolution before the end of the month, which will then further extend the local crude and local sale of petrol in Nigeria. So there's no need for any alarm now. There's still a bit of time. Today's the 20th, we still 11 days, and I'm pretty positive that from the government, from the NNPCL, from the Dangote Refinery Limited, between all three parties, we will get a firm resolution and motorists will continue to enjoy some discounted prices when it comes to the purchase of petrol, provided the international price doesn't climb significantly.
Okay, Mr. C, we will hold on to your positivity and optimism and hope it carries us through. Do you have anything to add to that? All right, then let's move on. But this time, still talking about premium motor spirits, the Adamawa and Taraba Customs Command has seized premium motor spirit known as petrol worth over 72.6 million naira. And this was heading to Cameroon via River Benue. Gbubemi.
So the Customs Command intercepted this shipment. They've attributed that to shared intelligence, leverage of technology, and coordinated border management. Smuggling will forever be an attractive. Smuggling of petroleum products will forever be attractive because it's cheaper in Nigeria. Even as much as we try to price with international prices, reflecting the actual price of petrol, our prices are still fairly cheaper. So I can understand how attractive smuggling is. This is just one border, seizure. There's so many other borders where around the country where not just petrol, but other products are moving illegally. I'd like to commend the customs officials for intercepting this, but like I said, this calls to further scrutiny and management of our borders. This is one out of God knows how many incidents that have been truncated. You can imagine what's happening across some of our other borders across the country. So it's very important, not even just the customs, but again, maybe back to the National Boundary Commission, even as we speak about that as well, and security operatives to make sure that our borders are policed and secured as much as possible to be able to prevent these kind of things. And I'd also like to also mention potential complicity of security forces, government officials as well,
Yeah.
in these kind of things, because potentially those are the kind of things you need to make this a lucrative trade. Turn the other way so that we can move this and then we'll, sort this. So if there are incidents of that as well, it's very important that they are caught early on and they are dealt with.
What do you think will happen to the recovered PMS?
So I've always wondered, to be honest, maybe it should be returned to the government. I don't know. But now that you mentioned it, I would not assume that they would destroy it. There would be no point, but it would be returned logically maybe to the NNPC.
Mr. C, do you have an answer?
Sorry?
Did you hear
What
the
if could
question?
happen to the
So we're
smugglers?
talking
No.
The recovered
the recovered PMS, the one that was headed to Cameroon via River Benue. So what do you think will happen to it?
So ideally, so there are two scenarios. Ideally, it should be returned to the regulator and then probably disposed of and the proceeds paid into federation accounts. That's the ideal situation. In reality, anything could happen.
Okay. Seems more like it. Or sounds more like it. We'll go to WhatsApp now to take your messages and you can send them in as well. WhatsApp line is 0809 444 0981. Tony from Marine Beach says, what we're seeing is democratic recklessness and impunity, in my opinion. This government has dealt a major blow to our laws, and the president especially should be aware that he just set up a trajectory where the ruling party may allow you win your elections, but set up these kind of process to sweep away the governors of the opposition. The NAS will only be putting nail on the coffin if they give the assent, but surely the names of the supporters will be noted. Wendy says, can't rein in Fubara or Wike, sad. Barrister Dan Okuda from Migodo says, good morning, the crew. Any sanctions on the dramatic persona in this River State saga that does not reprimand Wike is unjust. And Yinka Abolude from Mikoton says, good morning. No doubt that there is bias in River State. Nevertheless, if this drastic step is not taken, I foresee many lives being lost needlessly and anarchy in Rivers. It was a necessary action. I'm not sure of your name, but you said, one would think that analysis of the River State issues will be fair to all parties, but then one is not surprised that we are usually taking sides. Did Fubara not commit so many atrocities against the state? He demolished the House of Assembly complex. He single-handedly passed judgment on defection and stopped salaries of 27 members. He threatened violence and even did not honor an agreement he signed when the president intervened because some people, without the interest of the people, urged him to do so. Good intervention right now from the president. Fubara is the major beneficiary of this suspension. And Michael says, while the committee is being set up, what about Nigerian citizens under the thumb of Cameroonian forces being harassed and hounded? Why can't we deploy our own forces, even if it's just a show of force? Must we always dilly-dally? Trying to imagine what Mr. Trump would do in this situation. Idemakuta from Surulere says, the mistake of not calling Wike and his rebellious lawmakers by Mr. President on time to order caused the mistake of declaring state of emergency in River State. If Mr. President had cautioned Wike on time to leave Fubara to govern River State, there wouldn't have been problem that will lead to declaration of emergency rule. Does anyone want to say anything to that, or we move on? All right, we'll move on then. So let's go to this one coming from The Nation. And Honorable Alabi's bill to protect domestic workers in Nigeria passes second reading. Gbubemi.
Okay, so domestic workers are typically domestics, house helps, servants, cleaners, all of this. And interestingly, if many of us realize that the practice of hiring these people has been largely informal. We'll bring somebody from the village or refer somebody, and they come and live with you, and maybe you pay the person who brought them some money and you give them some money. There's no structure around it. So what this bill seeks to do is to introduce structure into that process and introduce them formally into the world of employment. So the bill proposes mandatory employment contracts outlining duties, wages, and benefits, a minimum wage for domestic workers, ensuring fair compensation, standardized working hours and overtime pay to prevent excessive labor exploitation, access to social security benefits, including health insurance and pensions, legal protection against abuse and harassment with penalties for violators. One of the other things I would like to see the bill cover, if it hasn't already done that, is also to establish an age limit for who can work as a domestic, because we know that some people, and get children as young as 10, 11 to work as domestics, they're children at that point in time. They shouldn't be, handling that weight of responsibility. So hopefully at least this bill will also establish an age requirement for them, most likely 18, which is typically when we look at people entering the world of work. What they said is that the bill should enhance labor rights of citizens, bring structure to that sector, and also make life better for a lot of people who work as domestics. This will also help with transparency around the compensation practices of those sort of people, establish some sort of standard, and hopefully formalize the sector, quote unquote.
Now, I am curious about this one, and I'm coming to you, Mr. C, for this one. So beautiful that this bill is being put forward, is passed and skill second reading. But I'm looking at the implementation and how this applies. How do you get people to actually follow in line with what is being put forward? How do you get people to comply?
So I've been pondering the question, and I'm not sure I can give an answer now. Then more importantly, I'm not even sure why this bill is being considered now. Is this what we need to be dealing with at this point in our national existence? So it's going to be difficult. And then the question then is, how do you manage all of this? When there is, what do you do? But until I need to see a copy of the bill to provide some more detailed analysis. And in the absence of that, I am afraid I'm constrained. I can't answer your question.
One final one. What do you mean that is this what we should be dealing with at this time?
We're dealing with millions of Nigerians who live in abject poverty. Millions of Nigerians who are at least 24 hours without eating a decent meal. So what is this business about domestic helps? How does that improve the productivity of the country? How does that move the country as a collective unit forward?
Interesting. All right, we'll take the final story, and this one is coming from The Punch. Minimum wage, NYC to spend 307.6 billion naira on corpers allowances. And one of the reasons why I found this story interesting is because according to the report, it said that each corps member now is receiving 77,000 naira. And I'm not sure if that's correct.
Okay, so very quickly, because of time, in July last year, the president announced an increase in the allowances to be given to corps undergoing national service. Previously, the initial sum was 33,000 naira a month. Announced the new sum will be 77,000 naira a month for each corps. So as we speak, nobody has received 77,000 naira. So yes, we've seen the report, 307 billion has been set aside. Now, again, we need to remind our listeners, it's one thing to approve, it's one thing to set aside. The meat of the matter is the release of the funds. Until the funds are released, it's just another newspaper headline. Now, the bigger question is, when do they intend to start paying? My question is, where is the money coming from? Because you think that since last year, they would have started paying. They couldn't pay because there was no money last year. They haven't paid this year because there hasn't been any money. So when they intend to start paying, where is the money coming from? It's all sweet and good to say that you want to pay corpus 77,000, which incidentally is higher than the national minimum wage by 7,000. But key question, where is the money?
Gbubemi, do you have an answer to that? Where is the money going to come from?
Yeah, exactly. So even the article says that they're waiting for the cash backing and cited that as the reason for the delay. So I really wonder. And I hope it's not a situation of they manage to pay 1 month and then it becomes a struggle in subsequent months. I don't know.
Question. Do you think we are broke or we just have money in the wrong places?
We don't know
Anyone?
how to manage money.
Nigeria is struggling for cash. I don't want to say broke, we're seriously struggling for cash.
We're still
It's a
what?
real struggle. We're really struggling for cash. I don't want to say Nigeria's broke. We're really struggling for cash.
resources.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And on the final note, this message says the fuel seized are constructively warehoused, which means they will auction them off almost immediately because they are volatile and cannot be kept for long. Well, thank you, Mr. C. Thank you, Gbubemi, for your time this morning, and we'll look forward to having you again another Thursday. You can catch Gbubemi on Twitter at Orishega. That is ORITSEGA. I get that right? Good. And you can find Mr. C at Monsieur C on socials. Thank you. And remember that you can go back to this live stream on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. At Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Thank you for listening. Smooth Breakfast continues. My name is Oluwaseun.
The headlines, the stories, the news.
Thank you, Mr. C. So 9 o'clock.